Washington mornings on the Mall. 105.9 FM. And AM 630. WMAL.
It is 7:07 on WMAL, where Washington comes to talk. I'm Brian Wilson. He's in Neiman, and we've got some stuff coming up here. We got Stuart Varney coming up later this hour. We're going to be talking about... and the Bruce Springsteen and the Eastie brand tickets are going to be given out.
This hour. Coming up
So
later this hour.
If you're interested in going, you can get them even one day before they go on sale right here on WMAL, so stay tuned to that. You know, we talk a lot here on this program about the TSA, our concerns at times about how that organization is run. We have on the line now KIP HAWLEY, who is the former director of the TSA, and he's actually said some very interesting and rather provocative things of late. We want to sort of draw him out on what he believes should be done to change the TSA. KIP HAWLEY, thanks for joining us here on WMAL.
Pleasure, Brian.
All right, so your point is that we have perhaps gone too far in the way we screen passengers, and that perhaps we ought to back off a little bit. Talk a little bit about some of the things that you've proposed of late.
Well, we started so fast after 9/11 that we put in measures to prevent hijackings, and then over the years we've now got quite a bit of protection there, and we no longer need quite a bit of what we originally put in, meaning the prohibited items. And
like what?
Like Swiss Army knives and baseball bats, lacrosse sticks, or other sharp objects that could certainly be used to harm someone, to kill someone. But in this day, with all the security around it, they're not going to take over the plane. So we spend just a tremendous amount of time and energy with the TSA people going through bags looking for small items that are irritants to the public and really no strategic threat to the country. They're not going to cause a catastrophic loss of an airplane.
So am I getting you right here? You're saying that, look, we ought to focus on making sure that planes don't get blown up and that there's nothing that somebody takes on that would allow them to take over a plane. But you're saying that for somebody to have a Swiss Army knife, well, yeah, there is a potential risk, but no greater than the risk one has when one walks down the street.
Correct. And so I'd say cut the prohibited items list to guns, explosive components, and toxins. And that would just clean up that whole process of the officers would focus on what's truly dangerous. Passengers would go through super fast and would save a lot of money.
What about liquids?
Liquids are still a threat, but we have the technology to detect threat liquids from non-threat liquids, which means that you could have a lane or two or three or all of them if you want that would be for liquids that would go through in the gray bin. You take them out of your bag, you put them in the gray bin, and then they go through the scanner. The problem with them is that they have false positives, which means that they're slow. But my point is we have the technology. Let the public choose, because there are people who want to bring whatever it is they want to bring, and I think they're willing to wait a little bit extra time in line to be able to bring on things, and those that want to get on fast just keep using the baggie. But my point is let the public choose. Don't just sit on until it's perfect.
All right, you worked obviously for the TSA, and you've worked in the private sector as well in some security fashion. Do you believe that a private security firm or privatizing TSA would be better than leaving TSA alone as it is right now?
I think the private sector is more than capable of providing excellent security at airports. The problem is that the system that we have now merely takes what TSA does, again, gives it a surcharge, and says, okay, now that's private sector. That's just essentially personnel contracting and is not what I think of from being in business as engaging the private sector. So I think that we first need to change the rules for what we have our private sector folks do and engage some innovation and new techniques and that kind of thing, and then open it up. But I think if we just say we're going to privately contract out to get TSA people, you're not going to see a difference in the underlying system.
It said that San Francisco International, is that airport run by the TSA, the security, or is that a privatized entity?
It's a privatized entity supervised by the TSA.
Supervised by the TSA.
Yeah.
Do they do anything different than other airports across America that are run by the TSA?
No.
Okay.
They have the same standard operating procedure, and they are inspected to do that. They're perfectly capable. If we took that requirement off, I think you'd have some pretty good innovations that would be keeping the system more fresh.
I think the thing that concerns most people about the TSA, two things I hear all the time. Number one, it seems like every place you go, the rules are just a little different. I mean, there's no consistency. Some places told you got to take out your wallet. Other places you say, no, you can leave your wallet in. I mean, there are these little things that sort of drive people crazy when you travel a lot because there are differences in the way the rules are enforced. The second thing is that you don't give the people on the front line the ability to use their good judgment. In other words, do they really need to pat down that 4-year-old because the 4-year-old ran back through the line? And every single day you can find a story like that. What do you say to those things?
That there's a root cause for that, and that is the original plan for TSA and the one it's operating under now is a regulatory model, which works well if you're checking defects, mechanical defects, where if you find a fault, you issue a rule and say fix it. But when you have 2 million people a day going through checkpoints staffed by 60,000 different people, and you just try to capture that in a rule set, there are just going to be millions of things that are outside the ambit of the rule. And because what the regulatory system says is, officers, you must follow the standard operating procedure, of course you're going to have lots and lots of different things because there are so many gray areas. And I'd be in favor of changing the standard operating procedure from a couple hundred pages to 2 words, which is mitigate threat. Train your people, give them the intelligence, and let them use their judgment. And they don't want to be fishing through bags any more than you want them fishing through your bag.
A couple more questions. We're going to have a lot of time. But is the TSA expanding outside of airports? We read a story the other day about how they're partnering with Houston police to get on buses and things of that nature. Is the TSA solely at the airport, or are they branching out? From
the beginning, they were responsible for the security in all of the modes. And the big difference with airports is they're TSA employees. And I think the sensible way to do security in mass transit, which is what we do now, is have the local law enforcement and local security people manage it, and then use TSA to put in extra flux resources if they have a big event, or otherwise provide intel.
All right. You also talk about, hey, you need to focus on bombs and behavior, not knives and liquids. Does the TSA, should they look at behavior, and should they look at perhaps profiling, criminal profiling, whether that is racial profiling or religious profiling?
No, on the religious and racial, because simply from the point of view that Al-Qaeda has people who look like every possible thing you could imagine.
Yes.
And if you just say, all right, we're going to look at this category, they'll